Hey, well, what do you know? There's actually a topic I can talk about that's kind of in current events and stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go over some of the recent things involving PewDiePie, Disney, content creators, news journalism, and a lot of other stuff. And obviously, this is being all over the news. You've probably heard about it already. And, you might have seen PewDiePie's video. You've probably seen other people respond to that video, to various articles. You might have seen articles that respond to his video. Pretty much everything under the sun. So I just want to kind of talk about it because this is the one topic, really, where my expertise actually comes into play, and I've kind of got an insider look from both sides. So for those of you that don't know, of course, if you frequent my channel or anything like that, you know that I'm a YouTuber. I've been doing this for about 6 years since I was in high school. I recently, though, over the last couple years, ended up going to college and got myself a diploma in communications. Worked in a couple of newspapers. I currently work in the radio industry, and I do have a big connection to Canadian media and Canadian journalism, and that inherently does kind of let me have a little bit of an opinion on these types of things. And the thing is, I don't work for any news media right now. That doesn't mean, though, that I'm not technically trained in it or anything. I've worked on newspapers in the past. I have experience, like I said, in radio right now, as well as television, and pretty much everything under the sun, as well as having 6 to 7 years experience making online content in various forms, whether it be YouTube videos or podcasts, Let's Plays, reviews, pretty much everything under the sun in that regard as well. So what I wanted to do was kind of give my thoughts on the scenario, what I think is going to happen in the future, what I think is already happening in certain cases as well, and just, have a little chat, because talking about these things very calmly is something that's needed in scenarios like this. If you go on Twitter or these other weird places, wherever you go, you're going to see people who are, on one side or the other, and they're going to be making a big deal out of it. They're going to be making it seem like it is the end of the world, basically. That's something that just happens inherently with the internet, but I pride myself in trying to take a nice little plain look at things and keep everything kind of on the down low and just, remain calm. Keep calm and carry on. Dead memes aside, though. So, here we go. Now, for those of you who don't know, basically what happened is that a couple of news organizations, they ended up basically publishing a few articles that were calling out PewDiePie for some anti-Semitic statements. He was, in a few of his videos, making, say, Nazi references, Hitler references, holding up some things, signs against Jews that he made for a video on Fiverr where he paid someone to do that. And he meant it as a joke, that's very plainly and obvious. And in my opinion, that was very plainly satire. However, the media picked up on it, and considering that PewDiePie is involved with Disney, they were making a YouTube show around him and everything. They saw that as potentially damaging for his brand and potentially damaging for Disney or YouTube, so they ended up informing them as well as seeing it as an opportunity for some news media in their own right. And to be fair, as news media, it is your job to bring light to issues like this, things that could be a problem for companies or for the general populace. So I'm not going to say that, while I think that the news media may have taken this a little bit out of context and a little bit too far in order to rile people up, I do think they have the right and the responsibility to point these things out when they may be going a little bit too far. And what ended up happening is basically PewDiePie had his show pulled, Disney's no longer affiliated with them, and it has definitely damaged his brand a little bit. And of course, this isn't the first time that the media has gotten involved with him, and he's since responded, basically saying that it was a personal attack on him and his brand, and they were doing it basically because they don't like new media. And this is what he's calling the old media of newspapers, articles, television, and he's saying that they aren't willing to deal with new media and content creators. And in a sense, I think that that is definitely an issue, and I say this as someone who's involved in both old media, as he put it, and new media, where I make YouTube videos and everything. At the same time, though, I have training in newspapers, like I said before. I have worked in the radio industry. I continue to do so. And basically, it's going to be inherent that, whenever something new comes along, it's not always going to get along with what was already there. People are going to want to defend their own industries and everything, and if there is something new that people are skeptical about, we saw this in the past with movies and radio when that first came out, and now we're seeing it with the internet. It's been around for a few years, that when there is that little bit of unrest in the older generation's mind, that the media that they consume is going to jump on that in order to possibly, get some more older people viewing it and to stay relevant themselves. So I think that that is definitely something that is going to inherently happen with media, and I do think that it has happened to Felix PewDiePie in the past. However, I don't think that that's always the case, and I think that we need to maintain a level head here and just remember that the majority of journalists, especially in my own experience, are out to, maintain some level of journalistic integrity and not attack people. And it's also worth remembering that what you may not see as a big deal could be a big deal to others. And what I mean by that is, over the past couple years, and especially in the last few months, especially with what's happened in the world over the last 6 to 8 months or so, we've seen an increase in fear. People are very uncertain about what's happening in the world, and we've seen some unrest across the world over, and that's increased things like hate crimes, hate speech, and people are on edge about that. At the same time, though, people try to make light of it, and people have been making light of it before. I mean, things like making fun of World War II or Nazis or Hitler, that's not a new thing. It's been around for many years indeed. But what's happening right now is that with these recent events, if a public figure that has any sort of pull or can convince or can speak directly to an audience, has any audience whatsoever, if they are going to be speaking out and making those jokes and bringing up those topics, and if one group feels that it's not warranted, then it's going to increase the chance and the reaction for it when they do decide to go after them. And that's what we've seen happen with YouTube channels and PewDiePie and new media lately. So we know that, say, things like swastikas are very popular on the internet. People believe they're being edgy when they're doing it, or there are younger kids who might not quite understand the implications for it, or maybe you just think it's funny and you don't think it's a big deal. That's entirely your right. But older media and more generalized media is dealing with all this other stuff in the world too, and they're failing to sometimes look past that it can be just satire, or they feel like the satire isn't warranted, so it's becoming a bigger problem than it otherwise would be. Now, do I think it was right for them to publish these articles, go to these companies, and eventually get PewDiePie's livelihood damaged by getting his television show pulled indirectly? I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, that is the right of the media to raise light of these issues and for corporations to do what they see fit. That is what the media is supposed to do, of course, which is, change things for the better. Your definition of better might just be different. I think that it might have gone overboard by all means. It was definitely something that they took out of context, and to a certain extent, and certain publications are absolutely attempting to make it a bigger deal for their own personal gain. This is something that we see with a lot of types of media, especially online media and television media. They will try to gain more viewers so there's more people watching their advertisements. And how do you do that? Well, you get more controversial content, and, if you can out someone who's in new media, so you're not going to anger your existing fan base, or your existing viewer base, rather, then why would you not go and take that jump? However, it is worth noting that they wouldn't have taken that jump if, say, PewDiePie hadn't made jokes like that in the first place, because maybe to the majority of people, or maybe if you feel like there is a minority or majority that could be offended by those jokes as you're making them, yes, it's always good to push the boundaries of comedy. I myself agree with him when he stated in his latest video that I don't think there is boundaries in comedy. I think you can make any joke you want to, but at the same time, you need to understand what the possible repercussions for that are, right? So making jokes like that that are against the Jewish people, and he meant that in total satire, I'm completely aware of that, or making jokes that reference Nazis and everything. When you've got a show, when you're working with YouTube, or when you have an affiliation with Disney, maybe not the best idea to do in the first place, and he's admitted that he thinks that he probably could have thought that through a bit more and everything, so it's not like this wasn't in the realm of possibility at any point, and I don't think it's as malicious as some other people are claiming, but at the same time, I don't know the inner workings of every single journalistic outlet. I know that when I'm working, doing any sort of journalism, whatever it may be, whether it's a developer interview for video games, or when I was in college and working on the college newspaper down there, or when I was at my job and doing interviews over the radio, I was always trying to maintain my own personal moral code where I would not directly attack anyone or go in with an agenda other than spreading awareness of whatever they are saying, because it's not about what I'm saying as a journalist, it's about, what they say and reporting on that. At least that's what my moral code with journalism is. And it all depends on the outlet, all depends on each individual person who's gone through all that themselves. And the fact of the matter is, you're going to run into that no matter what. Something else that was mentioned in PewDiePie's response was he was saying that old media is scared of new media, is scared of him and content creators like him. I don't know if that's true. I think that it's more along the lines of they are very skeptical and they're very quick to jump on people who they perceive as easy targets. I'm not saying that they're doing it completely maliciously, but we have to remember that YouTube has only been around for, 12 years now or so, and it allowed people on a grand scale for the first time ever since the internet started and everything to get their opinions heard and to, for better or worse and more or less, be almost journalists themselves. The difference is, though, that a lot of these people have never gone through any journalistic training. And I say, like, it would have been obvious to me that maybe I shouldn't make a joke about Nazis or Jews in my video, so I usually don't do that. But to someone who isn't trained in journalism, who didn't take PR classes or anything like that, and I can't speak to whether PewDiePie did that or didn't do that, but there are plenty of YouTubers that were working just your regular 9-to-5 jobs beforehand, and they don't think about these things, right? So you get a more down-to-earth brand of humor, a more down-to-earth way of dealing with issues and talking about stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot more possibility of it being bias or of them taking things a bit too far because they've never thought about these things. They've never been formally trained in it. So I think that what we should be taking away from situations like this and the fallout from it, it should never be a negative fallout. It should always be people who, when you hear this news, you don't need to jump on either side. You need to take a moment and just think from both sides, try to see everyone's point of view, and if you don't have experience in one of those fields, in one of the sides, then it can be very easy to assume that the other side is wrong, or something like that. So always read both sides, and by all means, just try to maintain a level head in situations like this. What do you think about this whole scenario? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you want me to do more things like this. I do want to cover more current events and stuff, and I feel like I'm at the point now where I can formulate my thoughts properly, and even if I sound like I'm rambling, it helps me, too, to do things like this, so hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know if you want to see more of it, and yeah, there we go. If you want to support me, a couple ways you can do that. VidMe and Patreon is the best place to do so. Throw $1 my way. I'd appreciate it. Thanks to all the guys who have supported me lately. I do appreciate you guys as well. Seriously, I love you guys. You're awesome. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.